Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, nearly done taking issue with Batman Eternal, I promise. Previously, Hush commandeered the Batcave, sabotaging Batman and his allies. Spoiler briefly visited Vicky Vale with vital information, finally, only to be abducted by Cluemaster. Jason Bard threatened the mayor into setting Gordon free, finally, but that may prove difficult, as a prison riot has broken out. Again.
The kickoff to issue 49, Kyle Higgins on script, is 6 police cars racing to Blackgate with a chaotic city behind them. Bullock tells Bard and Maggie Sawyer that according to guards, it was an inside job Penguin had up his sleeve the whole time. How they determined that so quickly in the case of 2 rioting cell blocks remains a mystery. Harvey's contacts haven't seen Gordon yet, so he's on his own until they arrive. Jim, meanwhile, is restrained by Penguin's largest goon, insisting that they're being played by the bird. He tries telling Terry, the big guy, that he's too smart for this, only to be let go and punched. Some people just can't take a compliment. Cobblepot approaches with a shiv, but being let go was just what Jim needed, tackling the deposed mobster into an empty cell and locking the door behind him. The goons say they'll get a key, but Gordon tells them they won't be fast enough, and after decking Oswald around some, he warns they'd be in there with him. He convinces them that Penguin isn't worth it when they have a whole riot they could join in on, and they leave. Gordon tears strips from a bedsheet to hogtie his quarry, saying they'll have plenty of time to talk now.
Now. How you been?
As 2 bats, 2 birds, and a hood continue their struggle against various villains, most of whom we've only seen piddle away their time with nigh unlimited resources, Hush is at the back computer, delighting in their struggle, telling Alfred he loves breaking Bruce's toys. To add to his amusement, he sends the Batboat out to crash into a cargo ship, telling Alfred they're close to the finish line. Meanwhile, Julia thanks Red Robin's paranoia for building another Batcomputer, as she somehow gains entry into the Robin's nest. And for whatever reason that will never be explained, a computer designed to be separate from Batman's systems instantly accepts someone Tim's only known for a short time. Not that we have any reason to suspect Tim made arrangements for her to access his computer if need be, nor did we see any indication of Julia finding out about the nest. But who needs consistency or coherency when you've got convenience and ignorance? In Cluemaster's chopper, Spoiler laments that no one is paying attention to the obvious in front of them. Her father, sporting a bluer variant of his Clue goggles, commends her for seeing the pattern he laid out, something that comes natural to them. He offers to teach her more, to do great things, regretting not seeing her potential sooner. Yeah, sorry about that whole belittling your existence while trying to kill you thing. Steph's response is to force the chopper into a nosedive, saying she wants literally nothing to do with him. She rolls out to a nearby rooftop, and as daughter and father exchange last looks, the latter looking genuinely sad, they go their separate ways.
Sometimes bring your daughter to work day just doesn't work out the way you hope.
And hey, what a novelty! Spoiler putting her mask on! The Batboat is closing in on its target when Hush's commands are overridden by Julia, from one of the angles he failed to cover. However, Bruce, in fact, accounted for Red Robin's nest, and the override is overridden. Alfred quietly utters an access code while Tommy is distracted, sneaks behind him, and clobbers him with both fists. I think we've had just about enough of you. Hear, hear, Mr. Pennyworth. He tells Bandage Face he can't lock the old bean away in his own home, and punches him out on a splash page I can forgive for showing Alfred being awesome. He narrowly prevents watery disaster and returns the nest systems back to Julia, while reconnecting to Batgirl and the rest. Bluebird snarks about their timing, getting her legs frozen by Mr. Freeze. A fatigued Red Hood informs that Bane is on the move, ripping open the cage that was going to be for, well, cage matches, and leaving the bar that made no sense for him to be in. Batman radios that he's on his way, zeroing in on Bane, who leaps at the craft, knowing it can only be one man.
Yes, only Batman would fly in a non-Bat-themed aircraft. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I know, he probably figured because the plane was beelining for Bane and all. And as James Tynion IV scripted issue 50 shows us, straight up crashed into him. Batman just smacked someone with a fighter jet in the middle of his own city. I know that sounds cool, but think about it. How reckless is that? It would have, could have, should have killed Bane, but it seems it just plain tuckered him out. Batman says he doesn't lose in his city.
At crime fighting, I win. At poker, I win. At Clue Jr., you bet I... Wait, this sounds familiar.
But Bane can detect a hint of fear in his voice, that everything is slipping away, until Batman's boot sends him to Slumberland. Red Hood survives. Yay. Saying Bruce doesn't look so good, because it's a great idea to say the real identity of the most famous/infamous vigilante in the world out loud on a public street. But then again, Hood's probably assuming that people ran away from the fiery plane explosion, or they died because Batman's suddenly an idiot. Bat says he's fine, projecting a holo map with his gloves as the pennies update him. I've seen holodeck-centric episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation that didn't throw around as much holography as this series. They tell him about Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, and wannabe Joker spawn, as well as the Blackgate riots that have claimed 16 lives thus far, with Bard leading the police to quell the chaos. Bats tells Red Hood to administer a paralytic to Bane, so he's nice and immobile until he's collected, while Boss Bat is going to end this. You know he's serious because it's bolded, yet ends in a period. At the riot, Gordon is chilling in a cell, talking about busting wrists and kneecaps to whom he thinks are more inmates out to get him, when it's the dream team of Sawyer, Bullock, and Bard. Jim also makes a reference to the classic Bat line about criminals being a cowardly lot. So, reference. Seems like they didn't have much trouble getting to Jim, despite the apparent hit placed on him and, the riot. Rex Calabrese chimes in, saying Penguin was behind it all, which the cops already knew, so it's not like he's providing them any special info. Speaking of the foul felon, he's properly dressed and escaping in a speedboat with Killer Croc, saying he trusts Scale Belly's boss over an anonymous voice on a phone telling him to take over a prison.
I mean, really, what on earth would I do with a prison?
Here's a better question. Why did Gordon leave you alone after that talk we never saw you two have? Here's another question. How did you get free? Also, how did you get out of the riot in one piece? Also, am I going to get any answers here or not?
At Gotham Cathedral, Batwing is down and at the mercy of Scarecrow's monologue. He notes how the fear of death is at everyone's core, and that his drones are now spritzing all of Gotham with his fear chemicals. They curiously return to the Mad Doctor ahead of schedule, with two of them somehow able to carry an entire Batman between them. Having taken control of the Crows, he has them unleash all their fear gas on Crane himself. Well, hope Batwing's mask has the proper filters, or he's going to have some unpleasant dreams. And remember during the Arkham investigation how often his suit was malfunctioning? Yeah, they never really resolved that in this comic. Back in the cave, with a thoroughly confined and silenced Hush in the background, Alfred notes unusually high infrared activity. A moment later, and Julia tells him to pull up CCTV footage of Coventry, Park Row, and the Narrows. They're all on fire in a deserving 2-page spread featuring Firefly. Of course, Julia saw a good chunk of Gotham on fire already, so maybe she's just surprised at how much it's spread. On top of this, the police force is dealing with the prison riot. Rats are climbing out of the pipelines, neighborhoods have power outages, stoplights are randomizing, leading to 15 accidents, and The Simpsons Halloween special is airing halfway through November. Julia tries calling Batman, saying there's more than what they're seeing going on.
Yeah, he knows. We all know. It's all anyone has talked about throughout this series.
We're told there's an invitation on all Gotham municipal websites, and attempts to raise the bat go unheeded. He's turned off his cowl comms to focus. Presently, he's assisted Bluebird in stopping Mr. Freeze, using the 800 volts from a lamppost to incapacitate the chilling villain.
All I wanted was a perfect world.
Yeah, me too. Well, this is the new 52, so be glad if you get mildly palatable. Bluebird notes how brutal that was, but he says the current spread through his gauntlets, just enough to short Vic's suit and keep him alive. He tells Harper, to get back to saving people. And yeah, the whole real name out loud and costume bit again, this time around a supervillain. But again, it's not like the hair and piercings make her inconspicuous. As the girl takes off, Batman borrows something from Victor. Red Robin is still taking on Clayface, only to be captured when he lands on a statue that was actually part of the metamorph. He mocks the young crime fighter, only to be frozen. And he has two mouths for some reason. Batman, wielding the freeze gun, hands Red R a device to reboot his systems, bringing him back online. Batgirl arrives, being the only one to take her foe down on her own, and for some reason dragging Joker's daughter to the studio where Clayface was. Maybe to keep an eye on her. Some snark between the two sidekicks frustrates Batman, as he tells them they're losing the city and they need to gather everyone they can to save it. They take off and Bats rebuffs Alfred's communications, needing time to think. Everything has been a trap or a distraction, from traveling across the world to interrogate the demon's head to Gotham being set ablaze, designed to tire him out. After all the foes he's faced and learned about, he can't deduce who's behind it or why, and that infuriates the Dark Knight. Do you want to find out?
Hey, skipping ahead in the book is cheating, Alfred. On the other hand, I can't really blame him. He's probably as tired of the length of this story as I am, as we probably all are.
His cowl has sent an image of the bat signal, with a message. Batman, you're cordially invited to the best seat in Gotham City to watch the end of everything you hold dear. From the studio, Bat sees a glimmer atop Beacon Tower. Framed within the window he punched out, which is kind of a nice touch, seeing the source of his rage through something he broke in anger. Since he's gone a good 36 hours without sleep, Alfred suggests Bruce reconsider going, or he could die. But if Bats doesn't go, everyone in Gotham will die. Come on, that flight from Raish's place couldn't have been too short. You could have hit the autopilot and gotten a few winks in. Looking at the escalating devastation with Bullock and Sawyer, Bard asks what they do. Jim Gordon, back to being Jim Gordon, says they do what the Gotham PD does. Get to work. Provided they're not on the take, I'm sure. The Dark Knight arrives at the beacon, as a mysterious voice from the shadows reminisces on the first time the bat signal first graced the Gotham sky. It was a while before the voice could see it for what it was. Batman's mark, pretending the city belonged to him. I'm done playing games. Apparently, the mystery man can tell the bat doesn't recognize the voice, wanting him to admit he doesn't know who he is. A pre-tasering pun, and a tasering later, it seems Bat still doesn't know. That's just perfect, Batman. Because you see, that's the whole damn point. The beauty of it all. You never did consider every option, did you? When all you need to do from the beginning was just follow the clues.
Huh. That is actually a pretty good twist. Cluemaster has played a subtle but consistent role throughout the series. His history with Batman was established, as was his marked egotism. This is actually a decent turn of events. But then again, Stephanie's origin started decent enough before it spiraled down into New 52 nonsense. But hey, maybe this won't be that way.
Issue 51, Tinian still scripting, sees the assumedly unassuming villain berate the Dark Knight, now tied to the broken bat signal, assuring him that even if his allies weren't burned to ashes, Signalman and his other less noteworthy compatriots are guarding the entrance of Beacon Tower. As Cluemaster uses a knife to cut the bat emblem off Bruce's costume, cutting the image into his chest because there isn't enough bloodshed or mutilation in this series, he notes that despite its importance to Batman, everyone knows but won't admit that beneath it is just a man, not an idea. He's no one, same as the crooks like Arthur that he's ignored, probably not even knowing who it is that's beaten him. Bats calls his bluff, identifying him by both his real name and villainous alias, but not without adding, a second-rate Riddler knockoff who could never pull off the kind of, and we can only assume what he would have said if Artie hadn't elbowed him silent. Rude. Certain that Enigma never got this close, even during Zero Year, he unmasks Batman, finding out he's Bruce Wayne, but realizing it adds a few things up. As he tosses the tattered cape and cowl to the winds, Arthur repeats the dialogue this series started with, about presuming his allies are dead, everything having been taken from him, that whole deal. Matter of fact, said allies are helping people in fire-engulfed buildings while Penny 2 becomes a little overwhelmed.
Now that's just cruel, saying his allies are dead, but there are Bluebird and Red Hood alive. Lies hurt, Mr. Brown.
At a meeting with some fellow gangsters, Selina Kyle is told of an invitation for criminals to loot Gotham as they please. One bald upstart insists they break up the deteriorating city into pieces to sell off. Catwoman is thinking, but the bald guy doesn't really seem to have much patience for something like that. The Queenpin responds to his dissent by revealing her whip and pulling him onto the table in the very next panel. A lot of unseen activity in those gutters. She reminds him, and by extension those around them, who's in charge, telling them they'll do nothing without her say-so. Hey, she's still a better boss than someone I could name. But enough of that, back to Bruce being tortured. By monologuing. Cluemaster, now sporting yellow clue goggles that don't have raised letters, tells him that every so often the non-A-list crooks would talk amongst themselves. One such night, during a Joker scheme involving a blimp, Artie suggested the idea of striking a big score while Bats was distracted by the clown. Everyone had a laugh, but the idea lingered with Arthur, certain he was right, that he could do anything if Batman was distracted by one of his bigger rogues.
You know, in concept it's not so bad, but it's just the execution has been so terribly problematic.
Such a large-scale plan does have one hitch. Many seriously buy into the idea that the Caped Crusader is more than a man, that he's an infallible machine outthinking anyone and everyone from any direction. And to reiterate their point, he's human, but in Batman's case, his mistakes are bigger than anyone else's. As we see Bruce wedge something from his sleeve, he encourages his captor to go on. You sly devil, you. So many people hate the vigilante that the slightest change in the status quo would have them popping up no problem. As a flashback shows him posing as a janitor at the police station and dropping some pills into then-Commish Gordon's mug, Cluemaster figured he'd need some Mad Hatter-style tech to force Jim Gordon to make a mistake, knowing his subsequent incarceration would immediately throw Batman off. He then sent out invites to various criminals, not caring what they did, how big or small their actions, so long as it made Bats think someone bigger than them was behind it all, and having him ignore smaller details. Upon wearing him down, it was a matter of giving a few of his other foes some equipment to distract the Bat and his crew, while the city burned. Now it all ends with an obscure villain who doesn't think he has a special file on the Batcomputer, though we did see his picture in Bat's file a time or two, because Batman bought into his own urban legend. "That's a nice story, Arthur," says Bruce, freeing one of his arms to clock Cluemaster. "Let me tell you one of mine."
It's a novella I wrote about two star-crossed lovers in the middle of a civil war on an alien planet. I got a B- for it in English Lit, but I think it's solid A material.
And if Cluemaster's plan sounds familiar to you, then you've probably read the mid-90s story Nightfall, when Bane broke Batman's back after wearing him down by freeing a whole bunch of his Arkham villains. The similarities are kind of hard to ignore. At Police HQ, Jim Gordon is told by Bard that his wish list of armored vehicles, riot shields, body armor, and more was approved by the governor's office. Turns out the riots were something of a motivated sell. Also, it seems Bard replaced his cane with one that attaches to his arm. Other precincts have spotlights, and there's closed-circuit TV at every stoplight, with an emergency broadcast announcement system. Gordon's ready to head out, but with no one listening to Bard, he'll be needed at the station. Jim asks him to recall when the then-commissioner flew to Detroit to interview the then-lieutenant, and what he said. Bard recites that Gotham is a city that is hard on those trying to do good, fighting back with the fury of the devil, but in the end, wanting the best version of you to prevail. That, Jim says, makes Gotham great, and even then he saw the fire in Bard's eyes, that he wanted to do right. Way to miss the part of his eyes that indicated he was driven to corruption from personal loss. Maybe get a new prescription, Jimbo. Anyway, now's the time for Bard to step up, do his job, and be the commissioner the city needs right now. Gordon and Bullock leave, while Sawyer tells Bard that the entire force is standing by, and they're coordinating with the fire commissioner. Jason replies that, precinct by precinct, they'll take back the city. Bluebird is telling a recently rescued child to get to her parents, cooling off with some water when Spoiler rides up. Whose motorcycle is that? She kept being taken from one place to another by other people, so when did she get another bike?
Harper! Hey, keep it down! Secret identity situation going on here?
Given her first suit was a cat suit that exposed her face, and her current suit exposes her hair and piercings, Harper Row is clearly not very self-aware, is she?
Rowe says there are more people in need a block over, but that's not why Spoiler's there. Harper recognizes her bags and realizes she's bailing.
What?
Steph notes that they've done so much as it is, giving what she knew to the press and doing their part, but this isn't their fight. They can save themselves and get out before they fry with the rest of the city.
What?
Bluebird essentially starts bragging about the people she saved and the injuries she sustained, and how she's going to keep on fighting. The Kanye West of crime fighters, everybody. Steph says it's not her responsibility, that she isn't Batman, and Harper says Steph still doesn't get it. True, but only because the writer won't let her. Either that or the editors or DC's incompetent higher-ups. Bluebird radios the cave for where to go next, and is on her way, telling Spoiler the clearest bridge out of town, and says goodbye.
What?
Steph gets back on the bike, turns and rides into the background, looking as if she's entering a fiery blaze, which I imagine is far preferable to being in the New 52.
You know, I don't care that this is a new universe, a new iteration, a new way. No, I don't care. This is a lousy reinvention of Stephanie Brown. If this fight or don't speech had come from Batman or Red Robin or Batgirl or Grayson, it would have made more sense. But no, it comes from Harper Row, a character so entitled she makes Damian blush. It's just such terrible writing and terrible character development, non-existent character development for Harper Row, and it just makes me so freaking mad. I could just... What the heck is... Canned peaches, 2 for 7 monkeys. Oh. Ow. What the... Oh. Jeez, where did this come from? I wonder... Yeah, I think this will do well.
Bruce is beating down Cluemaster, but apparently not at his peak, as he did more damage the last time they fought with a single punch. Hey, that gives me an idea for an anime. One Punch Bat. Anyway, as a mysterious figure that Lockup claims shouldn't be there knocks both him and Signalman out, and presumably the other guards we saw earlier, but not now, Bruce smashes Artie's face against the wall with his ponytail. The blood is worth it, though, otherwise his buddies wouldn't believe him later. But he's done with the game, knocks Batman down, and points a gun at him. Fitting, since his parents were killed by a nobody with a gun. Before he can pull the trigger, however, the intruder cuts his throat, and Cluemaster's last words are stating the obvious.
Not according to plan.
On a splash page is revealed Lincoln March, the Court of Owls agent, asking his maybe brother if he's ready to end this.
For better context, Lincoln March was a politician that some people said bore a resemblance to Bruce Wayne. He died, but came back, because he's one of the Court of Owls, a secret society, and resurrecting the dead is kind of their thing. He claimed that he was Bruce's baby brother, thought miscarried after his mother got into an accident caused by the court. It's still up in the air, last I checked, as to whether he is a second Wayne child, but personally, I find the whole evil long-lost brother shtick pretty cliche, and if they haven't settled it yet, my vote is towards the negative. Tune in next week for the conclusion of this overly long story, and what else about it is particularly negative.